Hello everyone, this is Builder for BasicLoL.com, and in this video I'm going to give a basic overview of the meta. The meta, or metagame, in League of Legends is a vague term, and it refers to the way that people generally play League. It can refer to champions that are popular at the moment, or it can refer to the general types of teams that are popular. The meta changes over time as Riot buffs and nerfs champions, in other words, increases and decreases their power, and as people's preferences change. In this video, I'm going to talk about an average team that is played in the metagame to allow you to be able to fit into that team. Generally, there's a solo top lane who is a bruiser, who is, in other words, tanky and deals some damage. There's a mage in the middle lane who mostly uses spells to do damage. In the bottom lane, there's a ranged AD, also known as a marksman or AD carry, along with a support. Also, there's a jungler who will go around between the lanes and kill camps. In general, the meta wants to have one AP champion and one tank. Here we have a basic example of two teams which are following the meta. We have a Renekton versus Shyvana in the top lane, a Lee Sin versus Jarvan in the jungle, a Syndra versus Ziggs in the mid lane, and Caitlyn and Sona versus Graves and Taric in the bottom lane. Overall, both of these teams have a mix of magical and physical damage, and have both tanks and squishier champions on their team. There are a couple of benefits and disadvantages to the meta. It can allow you to create a team with strangers relatively quickly, which is generally balanced in terms of team composition. And it also allows for predictable matchups within lanes. For example, in top lane, I will generally face off against a tankier top laner. In the mid lane, you would generally face against a mage, and in the bot lane, you'll generally face off against a marksman and support. And overall, this general strategy is pretty effective. It's hard to find other strategies that work quite as well as this basic setup. However, there are a couple of disadvantages to the meta. It restricts your creativity in that you basically do what other people do. You're like a sheep in the flock. Also, teammates can become frustrated with you if you do not follow the meta. It can also result in a sort of tunnel vision during the game, where you focus more on your role or the laning phase rather than the game as the whole. For example, I might pick a top laner and just stay in the top lane and say that I won top lane, and be frustrated that we ended up losing, and not focus on why our team lost. Here are a couple of takeaways if you want to try to follow the meta. You want to have at least one tank, someone who can take a lot of damage. You want to have at least one hard AP, someone who builds mostly ability power. You want to have a marksman, or ADC. And you want to have a support for that marksman, who protects the marksman. And you want to have a jungler. However, it can be hard to make your team follow the meta, especially at lower summoner levels, because either the team does not know what the meta is, or doesn't particularly care. So at this point, you might as well pick whatever you want, because it's in the lower levels, it's more important to try to learn more about the game than follow strictly what other players are doing. Also, it's hard to jungle before level 20 because you have fewer runes and masteries, which make it much harder to kill the jungle monsters. And in the end, you shouldn't let the meta get in the way of your fun. If you enjoy playing a champion a certain way, feel free to do it, and don't let the meta stop you. Well, that's it for this video. For a more in-depth look at the meta, please visit BasicLoL.com. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.